Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting. It is the 26th of September. It is 6 o'clock and time for the council committee meeting to begin. Well, first of all, I want to let you know that item number 8, Mr. Fenton has asked, that was an exploratory discussion that we had scheduled for this evening, but Mr. Fenton has asked that we pull that and delay it to a later to be determined time. And I think that's the only change to the evening. But now I'll ask Ms. Kittrell to call the roll for us, please.
Vice Mayor Love.
Here.
Councilman Carter.
Present.
Councilman Fan.
Here.
Councilman Fennell.
Here.
Councilwoman George.
Here.
Councilman Hayes.
Present.
And Councilman Juvance.
Present.
There we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. This evening you have the minutes from the September 12th, 2023 council meeting here for your considerations.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by Councilman Fennell. Any changes or corrections requested?
All good.
Okay, well, seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes are unanimously passed. We'll now move to public recognition. This is the time, well, it's the only public recognition in this evening's meeting because it's a committee meeting. Anyone that would like to speak to an item that's on the agenda or perhaps something that's not on the agenda, you may do so at this time. You just have to walk up to the podium, give us your name and your address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Probably not, but we'll welcome you first.
Thank you. To the council, my name is Phil Navarra. I live in the Twin Eagles subdivision. And simply, I'm asking the council to consider my proposal and to take it on as at least an investigative project that we investigate and see if this is possible. I would like, I'm not representing the whole subdivision. I'm representing myself and a number of walkers and bikers and hikers. We love the West Albert Gallatin Avenue Parkway. We walk it, we ride it over to Triple Creek Park and all the greenways. We just think it's wonderful, but we can't get to it from our subdivision. Do you know what I'm talking about? The hill that is at the end of the overpass on 109 and the Albert Gallatin? Down that hill is a pond and the subdivision. When we're looking at a proposal to connect to probably the lift station access road, and there's probably a number of things. About a week ago, or a week and a half ago, I submitted this proposal to Nick Tuttle, and I was overwhelmed with the amount of information. Is he here? Mm-hmm. Thanks, Nick. And I was overwhelmed with the response from him, his team, and others on city departments to advise me, give me information. I was very amazed and overwhelmed, and also I realized that what a battle this would be to do something like this, but it was not struck down by them, or they may have tried to talk me out of it, but they didn't. And they tried to advise me of what I would have to do to pull off something like this. So that's my proposal. I'm just asking at this point, there may be many other steps, but I believe from the advice from my councilwoman and others that this was the right time to present it to the council and for them to try to add this, at least for the investigation, into could this be done. There's many people who are in favor of it. I only have one raise your hand with me tonight, but there's many hikers and friends of mine out there that would like to see this. I am not representing the whole HOA tonight. I have not got their blessing because there's the need to really present them with something that's a workable plan. So I can't promise something I don't have. I need your help in getting something that I can present to them that you're in favor of and your engineers think we can do. And I think that's the point we're at tonight. And if anybody wants to add anything to that, Nick or anyone else.
I'll certainly follow up with Mr. Tuttle and Mr. McCord, the one sitting at this end of the
Yeah,
table.
he had some input too.
Mr. McCord, tell them who you are. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
but-
I saw your input, and Rosemary Bates gave me a lot of, she
She's not
spent
here this
a
evening,
long
so-
time on the phone with me and helping me, trying to straighten my head out.
Well, I
She
always
had a big
say I'm
job.
great at spending other people's money, so I would ask, has anyone approached Mr. Jones to see if he might have some key to the solution?
I've
for
approached
the
Mr.
neighbors?
Jones. He's got his hands full. He went down all the projects he's doing and just that he's got to do, and he is not interested in taking on anything besides what he has. And, but that doesn't mean he's against it. But I'd have to get something that looks viable to present to the HOA. So this could be we meet only once a year. So to get on the agenda would be my next thing for next February, to present to them something, maybe we could have something ready that the city goes, well, I don't know all the details, but I know there's a process, and it's kind of like a catch-22. I got to have something viable to present to get people on board, but I need the city's help to do that. Does that make sense?
And our folks may have some good ideas, so I just appreciate your care and bringing it to us and making the ask and thinking about things that
That's-
can improve the city.
I know this is just a start. I'm just bringing the ask and seeing what we can do. And in a partnership together, I'd really like to work with y'all. Thank
Very
you.
much.
You may be able to get some financial support from Mr. Jones at some point.
Maybe.
And Ms. Mahamakali has just reminded me I'm not supposed to interact with the commenters, but he was so nice, I could hardly resist.
Oh, thank you.
Excuse me.
Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment this evening, I'd welcome you forward at this time. Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to declare public comment closed, and we will move on to mayor's comments. I do have several things to share with you this evening. I will go fast for Mr. Hayes' benefit. I do want everyone to know the Sumner County Council of Governments Annual Awards Dinner is tomorrow night. I don't know who of you are going, but I will be there. On the 29th is Courtney Russell's birthday. That's not for me, Mr. Hayes. No, it's not. This week, this Friday, especially for those of you who are new in town, please know that Gallatin High School has a homecoming parade. It happens in the afternoon at 3:30 p.m. and Main Street gets closed and traffic is bad for a very short period of time. But it's a longstanding tradition that the city continues to support and accommodate. And so we appreciate your patience with that. They will be celebrating homecoming at the football field for Gallatin High School this Friday night.
I think the parade will actually start at 4.
Oh, okay, it says 3:30 on here. Maybe they want people
when they
lined up by then.
Probably, maybe when they start blocking traffic, I don't know.
I think this Saturday is the last farmer's market at the Gallatin Farmer's Market. That's 9 to 1. There are many many ball tournaments happening this weekend at Triple Creek. There's a softball tournament at Complexes A and C, a baseball tournament at Municipal Park and Thompson Park, American Legion baseball tournament at Municipal Park, all kinds of things happening. Also on this weekend is Death Comes to Rosemont. That happens on the 30th at 6 o'clock. On Sunday, the 1st, it's the Sumner County Recovery Fest. That happens at Triple Creek Park. I've had the opportunity to go to that a couple of times. It's a really neat event. And so if you are in the recovery community or you support the recovery community, I would encourage you to show up out there. They have music and they have food, and it's just a great celebration. That's from 2 until 5. And then on the 3rd is Councilwoman George's birthday. And then coming up on the 7th is the Main Street Festival in downtown Gallatin. That's the annual downtown festival that happens in the fall. It's from 10 until 5. Hopefully we'll have great weather. That evening is the NAACP Freedom Fund banquet. The 27th annual cemetery tour put on by the Sumner County Museum, and the Children Are People under the Big Top event, supporting Children Are People. And then on the night, it's Columbus Day, and most city offices are closed. I don't know if Chief Beaman wants me to share this commendation, or were you just passing it out for information? Okay, very good. Thank you. I feel like there was something else certainly. There is something very important I want to acknowledge. Some very sad passings in our community. First, Gallatin Police Department lost retired Officer Benny Adams. His funeral is this Friday at 11. Visitation is the evening before. Also, Volunteer State Community College President Orinthia Montague passed away very unexpectedly and shockingly to all of us who knew her and her student body, of course, and her family. That funeral is Friday at noon, and that's going to be at the college. And then the airport manager, who many of us have gotten to know, he and his family, Jeff Dunham, in recent months and years, his young wife sadly passed away. And so I'm going to ask that you keep these families close to your heart and say a prayer for them if that's something you do. And maybe be kind to somebody else, just to share some love in our community at a hard time for so many people. And that would be it. Including mayor's comments. Moving on to the regular agenda. Very excited this evening that David Brown has a special presentation with the help of some planning experts.
Thank you. Long time coming, but it's here.
Worth the wait.
I'm going to introduce Miss Beth Metters and my other little friend back here, Mr. Gillum, to say a few words about the master plan. I've looked at it. It's going to be a great tool for the department and the city to follow for a few years. We know it's going to be updated every 3 to 5 years because of all of our changes and everything in the growth. But I think I'll let them say a few words.
Well, thank you very much for letting us speak tonight, and thank you for the opportunity to work and develop this plan with you all, with the city and David. I will say, with a desire to have a comprehensive park system that elevates the city of Gallatin, your name and your recognition, one that helps to increase tourism and boost your economic development. This team set out to develop this plan, and so we looked at your existing park facilities, programs, and overall department needs. Our findings and recommendations are found throughout the comprehensive master plan before you, and it is for your review and adoption for one of the state requirements. So the plan will help prioritize future maintenance, capital projects, and budget needs for the next several years, as David mentioned. And I'd like to just quickly go over a few highlights and takeaways. So it was evident that the parks and recreation facilities and amenities are important to your citizens. 730 people participated in the survey, and 80% of those live within the city of Gallatin. Just over 50% of respondents said that family activities had the highest quality of facilities and programs, and I think that's really something to be proud of when you're growing. Some of the greatest strengths: your greenways and trail systems, your ability to plan for growth and expansion, and overall maintenance of facilities. Some top opportunities for improvement include continued enhancements and updates to existing facilities as they age or your population continues to grow. And a mention for more communication and information on park locations and amenities offered at various locations. And I know you all have your website. The Parks Department has their website as well, calendars and things like that. A few other things. So the city has designated some land for future parks in key locations. Some of those: East Main Park, Langley Hall, the Nashville Pike Access one, and then Franklin Park. And you'll obviously want to develop specific plans for those properties moving forward. And then it's also very important for accreditation, and I think that's something that you all know and recognize for both park staff and then the department as a whole. Again, it just elevates, your people's awareness of the Parks Department, the programs and facilities that are offered. And some more details on implementations, strategies and goals and improvements can be found in chapters 9 and 10. And if there's any questions or anything like that that you have tonight, or as you're reading through it, feel free to reach out to us. So thank you again.
So I think our next step is for you to go home and review it. If you have any questions or concerns, to let us know and see what we can do. And then, I don't know if next week is too early to adopt it, but it needs to be adopted.
I don't think it has to be adopted, but I think it would be a great tool to have the support of this body on the record, and particularly as we move forward. So I would encourage this body to formally adopt it. And last night, Mr. McCord brought up the Planning Commission adopting it as well. Just have support. Again, it's a plan. Doesn't mean that we're going to follow it exactly. It's going to have to be refined and expanded in the years to come, but it gives us a baseline. And as you look through this plan, council members, I think you'll be particularly impressed with such a great inventory of things that are top priority, not necessarily expensive to address, but things that need to be addressed and things that are low priority. And then you start looking at the plan and the investments, and that's where we're really going to have to set some priorities. But it gives you some benchmarks against other communities. It gives you some information that we've kind of struggled with, just trying to figure out, which are the most popular sports and who's playing the most and who do we need to provide what for. And so there's a lot of ideas there in that. And that will kind of help us guide on the things that we want to cost out and consider investing in as we continue to grow our parks. But one important part of this plan that you may have forgotten by now is that we have to have this plan in place to be eligible for grant applications, like the local Parks and Recreation Fund grant through TDEC. Is that what it's called, LPRF?
That's why it has to be adopted.
Yeah. Oh, it does have to be adopted to support that. Well, then I take back what I said at the very beginning of my soliloquy here, but, okay, I need you to adopt it and find your support for this. Now, I really don't see that you're going to find issues that you disagree with. You may have suggestions for enhancement, but we can certainly do that as time goes by. So it's a very, very good foundation.
Is there a lot of grants available for parks?
Well, there's all kinds, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of private sector grants available. The larger grants tend to be public sector funds, down from federal funds to state funds to locals. Those are the ones that are most likely going to require a comprehensive plan. But, yeah, and there's a lot that all of our departments have realized over the years. But I think that this and pursuing accreditation are two things that will elevate our reputation and make us seen as a park system worth investing in and growing. And I think right now, kind of the hallmark of our park system is the Miracle Park. That in and of itself has gotten so much attention for Gallatin's park system. And so how do you build on that? We don't want to lose that momentum, but keep growing and investing and having great opportunities for all of our citizens. Figuring out where those investments need to happen. And this has a lot of information to analyze, digest, and make decisions based upon.
So how do we know, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
how do we know where to find the grants? I mean, is that something that comes to us?
Oh, I mean, there are so many sources for grants. I mean, a lot of times, just like when I'm reading industry type blogs or whatever, I'll trip across grants and send them out. I don't read the fine print, and then they read the fine print and they say we're not eligible, or sometimes we are eligible. The Blue Cross Blue Shield grant is a great example. We know to look for it each year. We know that the state has its regular cycle of grants, but then there are other like smaller grants through some of the playground companies, or even like corporate entities that may have a presence here. The dog park's a great example. That was a $25,000 grant several years ago. Mars in Franklin does grants for pet-centric park projects.
Is there one place to go, or is it?
No,
Individual.
there's a government grants portal where you can find any kind of grants that are government. But as far as those that may exist everywhere, Google's your best friend. So
Got it.
So is next week going to be enough time for everybody
that's up to
look
y'all.
at it? Y'all think? What's everybody think?
I would like to put a motion to bring it to the next committee meeting for discussion. If we have to adopt it, so we have time to read it and bring suggestions if we need to.
What was the motion? I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
To bring it to the next committee meeting,
What?
The next work session.
next work session
Okay.
for discussion.
Fine with me.
So we don't adopt it at the work session, it's just
No,
to
but we
discuss
bring it with
it?
a resolution like we would do
Okay,
anything else.
got it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It will be on the next work session.
Thank y'all.
And I
Thank
will
you.
tell y'all, there's 7 employees that's taken their test to be national NRPA certified professionals in
Yay.
November.
We'll celebrate them
We're
when they
working on
are
that, yeah. Thank you.
passed. That's exciting. And Wold and Partners, we certainly appreciate all your efforts and hanging with us in the very long process. Lots of challenges as we worked through it, but I think we have a very good plan. I've been excited since I saw the draft, so. We'll put down the next work session.
When did we actually start this?
Did we?
20, when did we start? 21? 21, yeah. 21.
I think it was like February of last year.
Oh, 22, okay, well, that's better. So, but still, there were challenges as we navigate, so, pardon me?
Was Jenna not working for Parks and Rec at that
I don't
time?
remember when she was hired.
'Cause I know she wasn't listed. Okay.
I don't know when she was hired. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 2, which is the United Way's request to utilize 118 West Main Street. Background here, you know that the chamber is planning to move out of that building. That building is a unique property. It is on property that belongs to the city of Gallatin. It was a building constructed by the Chamber of Commerce in the 80s. At that time, there was an agreement made that the city of Gallatin would purchase that property from the chamber if they ever decide to vacate that. We will have to do that at some point in the future. They should be moving out sometime after the first of the year, like maybe spring. By March 31st, Ms. Baker says. And the United Way of Sumner County, which has been located in Hendersonville in the Hunt Club, has expressed interest in leasing that property from the city of Gallatin. I am certainly amenable to that, and Aaron Birch is walking up here, and Lynn Silverman, who, I guess, are you the board chair now, Mr. Silverman? Well, I'm delighted to see you in Gallatin. That's a rarity. And a fun fact that I learned last night when I happened to be at Jonathan's, open on its first day, was that the United Way was located in Gallatin City Hall back in the 80s. I didn't know that until last night. So they're here to answer any questions you may have. I've talked to Rachel and Susan about it. There are some concerns. We don't know what kind of rent rate that, you guys would be willing to pay or what we should be charging. I've asked the question, should we be offering this to other nonprofits? I'm very certain that we shouldn't be offering it to the private sector because it's on city property, and it is city property. We do have a sort of agreement with Ashley's Place, who utilizes the city property for the work that they do. I think if we were going to go down the road of another nonprofit on city property like the Chamber has been, the United Way is not entirely different, almost better fitted because you serve the community and you are a charitable nonprofit. You serve all the community, all the various needs. You're a resource for anybody that needs help in the community. Even if you can't deliver goods and services, you can provide information to them. And they have, as I mentioned, been in the Hunt Club down in Hendersonville, not a very visible location. And so for the benefit of the clients they serve and the donors they seek, they feel, you correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth that are wrong.
You are doing great, Mayor.
But for the benefits of the clients they serve and the donors they seek to support the agency, they feel like a more visible location for them, actually more centered to the population they serve in every way. It would be here in Gallatin on Main Street. Now, I've been real up front with Ms. Birch saying that we can't commit to them for 10 or 20 or 30 years. We can't. We don't know how things may evolve and change. We've talked a lot about City Hall, what needs to happen here. We talk a lot about parking. We talk a lot about, our police and fire stations. So things are going to change over time. But I think if we could reach some kind of agreement, oh, and Rachel did say too, that if we could reach an agreement where we both had an out with a certain amount of notice, that we would be in terms where we wouldn't get in trouble with the state, we wouldn't be bound by the terms of a lease if we were tied for a specific amount of time, if we both had an out, whether it be 30, 120 days, 90, whatever. But beyond that, they're here to make the ask, and we're here to have you discuss and see if this, I don't think this is a decision you want to make tonight. I think it's something you want to ponder and consider, and Ms. High McCauley may even want to investigate a little bit further than what we've done. But it's an exploratory ask.
Yeah.
Is that a facility will be enough square footage for you?
Yes, it'll be approximately double what we have now, so room to grow, for sure.
The other thing I'll say about that building, being very familiar with it, it's a hard building for someone to use. And having known the United Way space in Hendersonville and knowing how the chamber uses it, there's not a lot of nonprofit, like it doesn't have large meeting space. It doesn't have like a lot of private rooms. So, but it has a lot of very small open spaces where a team works. So I don't think that just anybody could utilize that building. And I don't think that anybody probably wants to go in there and do a lot of work when we can't guarantee that you can be there for a long, long period of time.
So you're saying an open-ended lease is what you're thinking?
Well, I would say a lease that could be terminated by notice from either party with a notice of 90 or
100 days.
120 days, whatever.
We would hope for a minimum of maybe 2 or 3 years at the most, just an agreement with that, just to help with operations and moving from one place to the next. We didn't want to take up your time with a lot of public comment today, but we are so grateful for the many folks who are here to support this opportunity that we have here in Gallatin to work and serve the community in Gallatin as well as a county. So thank you all for being here. Many of them are our partner agencies. Of the 35 that we partner with in the community, 19 are right around the corner of here in Gallatin. So as you can see, that would be very beneficial for our partnerships, also enhancing our accessibility to the community at large. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I think it would be fun to see who else here. I see Ashley's Place and Gallatin Cares and Shalom Zone and Unlimited Potential and what other agencies are out there?
Say what agency they're from?
Oh, Gallatin Daycare. I don't know. I can't see everybody that was. Grace Place.
There's Grace
Oh, hi,
Place,
Grace.
Casa, Felicia from Unlimited Potential, Gallatin Shalom Zone, Gallatin Cares, Ashley's Place, 4-H, Grace Place, Gallatin Daycare. Am I missing anybody?
I did pretty well.
Habitat.
Habitat. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, Mr. LaJoy wears a lot of hats and sometimes trying to figure out which hat he's wearing. But I really appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate the work that you do, and I know the rest of this council does too. Questions, Mr. Juvance?
Yes, ma'am. It's not for you. You're doing a great job. It's more a legality issue for Susan. Because it's a city property, do we have to do that as an open type bid or is just we do whatever we want?
I don't think we have to do a bid. We have to make sure there's a public purpose for anyone that would go in that building. And so that is the main thing that we need to ensure. And I've talked with Rachel from the comptroller standpoint. She thinks that it would probably meet that, but we probably need to investigate just a little bit more before we make a final decision.
Thank you, Susan.
Your comments, concerns? Are you all supportive of us continuing to explore this and see where we
Absolutely.
might get to?
Thank you, council. Appreciate that.
And I think I would ask of your organization to, and you told me at one point, and I don't want to go public with anything, but
Sure.
kind of what you all are used to paying monthly. And And I think, too, we would probably need to get into a situation where you all would assume utilities and any maintenance of that building. I think it has a pretty new HVAC because I saw them installing it.
Brand new.
So I don't think you'd get into a lot of maintenance, and then I don't know what we would do with insurance. But those are the kinds of things that we would need to explore as we move down the road. And so think about those things, follow up with me, and we will keep talking about this. And
Okay, so next steps for us would be to,
I think what we would need to do would be to craft some kind of potential agreement, which means that you and I and the attorney and probably Ms. Nichols as well could work together to see, and you too, Mr. Silverman, can work together to see what that might look like, and then we would bring it to this body to say, is this something that you approve of? And if it is, we've got it baked in. One thing I am really concerned about when you say 2 or 3 years, right now I feel comfortable with a year, but I need to have some conversations to figure out if there's some way that we could guarantee at least 2 years, because that I don't know.
I do think we would have to have in the lease, in talking with Ms. Nichols, for the comptroller's purposes, we have to have some type of a termination clause for each party. Would have to be, I think typically we would do a 1-year lease. That's what we've done with a lot of other agencies. We do a 1-year lease, but we'd have to have that termination clause. Not that we're going to have you in for 60 days and then have you, give you 30 days notice. But for the comptroller, I think we would have to have that out in our lease.
That's so it's not, so that's so it doesn't have to be reported as a liability to the state. And so if we have that, like I mentioned, the 30, 60, 90, 120 days, then it's not considered a liability because we're not bound should we ever need to get out of it. So I think that's our next steps. But
thank you so much.
I
Appreciate
think
it.
I speak for this body in saying we so appreciate the work that United Way does and the passionate way that you lead. And you're always so kind and lovely, and you work for your clients and with our community so beautifully. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for that. We will move on now to item number 3, which is Resolution R2309-80. This is asking for your support and authorization for Gallatin Public Utilities to apply for a natural gas distribution infrastructure safety and modernization grant for natural gas system improvements. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. This is, like she said, a request to apply for a U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration grant for gas system modernization. The project that we're looking at is about a 3.5-mile section of pipe that was put in 1965. Runs down along Nashville Pike from roughly Chick-fil-A to Big Station Camp Creek. It's about a $3.5 million project, and it's a 100% grant.
Wow.
Side of the road.
Motion to approve.
That side of
Second.
the road. That's where we are now.
Motion by Councilman Hayes.
I second.
Second by Councilman Fan. Any questions, any discussion? Okay, all in favor of moving forward to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. It does pass on unanimously.
Thank you.
Unanimously. Item number 4 is Resolution R2309-81, and Jennifer LaFever, adopting an identity theft prevention program. I hear about this 100 times a day on the radio.
Do you? Well, it's big. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm Jennifer LaFever, CIO. The resolution and policy before you are to formalize on a citywide level the processes and procedures the City of Gallatin currently uses for handling sensitive information and potential identity theft and fraud. I developed it for the city based on a model MTAS policy. I recommend your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
This is one of the things that has been talked about a lot, but she has brought us an actually crafted policy. And much like the Parks Plan, this helps us be eligible for IT grants that we actually missed the opportunity to apply for not too long ago because we didn't have this policy passed by you all. So
Wow.
Motion to send it on.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Carter. Any questions, any comments?
Good job.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All in favor of sending it forward to council, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We'll be on the council meeting next week. Item number 5 is Resolution R2309-82. This is authorizing the City of Gallatin to participate in the Public Entity Partners, Safety Partners Matching Grant Program. Ms. Hy McCauley.
Yes, this is the safety grant that we get from PEP, which is our insurance carrier. We get this every year. It's a $4,000 grant, and it's a reimbursable grant. So it's money that is going to already have been spent. And as of right now, the fire department is the only department who has at least notified us that they have expenses that would be eligible. So if they've spent $8,000, we would get $4,000 back. It's pretty simple.
Motion to send it on.
Motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by Councilman Fennell. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of sending Resolution R2309-83 on to council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes unanimously. Item 7 is Resolution. Oh, yes, you're right. Thank you. Resolution R2309-83. Item number 6, amending the City of Gallatin Personnel Rules and Regulations, Rule 16, Sections 16-1, 16-2, and 16-3. Ms. Russell.
Good evening, Council. Courtney Russell, HR Director. We are just making some minor wording changes to the Rule 16, including a rearrangement of the holidays in that first section, that 16.1, to make sure it stays in calendar order. And then also removing the wording that was grandfathered in when it was rewritten recently that has now become more of a hindrance. So the automatic application of paid time or of holiday time in lieu of other paid time doesn't apply across all of the departments. So we didn't want it to be an automatic substitution.
Council?
Have a motion by Councilman Dumont, second by Councilman Hayes. Any questions? Okay, I want to commend Ms. Russell for staying on top of all of our policies and working on digitizing the records down in the basement. I appreciate both she and Ms. LaFever, our newest hires, really working on some of those things that need to be worked on, and can't wait till planning gets to all their files. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Resolution R2309-83 will move on to council. Item 7 is Resolution R2309-84 to rescind Resolution R2309-77 and to adopt and reconfirm council's action to revise the employee pay plans, wage increases, and updated job descriptions within the police department. Well, let her describe the changes. I think that's important.
Really appreciate the support of the last one, but unfortunately, we realized that one of the exhibits was incomplete when it was submitted to the council last time. So we wanted to make sure that you had all of the official numbers and were able to consider that prior to
And I
actually
think there were
passing.
2 changes made with individuals where they could have gotten
There were
lost in
some,
the.
correct, there was an adjustment to the sergeant scale as well, rather than just
So,
transferring.
There is one change and one in a correction, but it's not vastly different anyway. Motion and a second. It was Councilman Hayes and Vice Mayor Love? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Resolution R2309-84 moves on to council. Item number 9 is the Planning Department Annual Report.
Good evening, Bill McCord, City Planner, and tonight I have a kind of a summary report on the actions of the Planning Department for last fiscal year. You have in your agenda package a summary of the activities that we've undertaken. We had 573 various applications that were processed through the office. We had 3 annexation applications, but none were approved in the fiscal year 2022-23. We did have a comp plan that was, comp plan amendment that was adopted as, by the Planning Commission, and that amendment was included in the comp plan that was adopted, not in the last fiscal year, but last month, actually earlier this month, on September 5th. So that was a major achievement, I would think. And we also had a number of rezonings. 6 properties were rezoned, totaling 33 acres, and those are listed. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but that's listed in your agenda package. We also had 50 master development plans or master development plans amendments. The more notable ones are listed in your agenda report. Also, 93 various types of final plats, and that includes anything from replatting a single lot to moving a lot line between 2 lots and things like that. So there were a lot of applications, but the major ones there are listed on the chart there. And some of them are a series of plats, a lot of them in Nexus, for example. A lot in the paddock of Kennesaw Farms, not large subdivisions, but a number of smaller subdivisions. We also had 51 site plans. The most notable ones, of course, are our police and fire training facility, Project Bowtie, which was over 1 million square feet, and Mallard Industrial Park, which was a little under 500,000 square feet. 4 variance cases, 4 conditional use permit cases in conjunction with engineering, 10 different public improvements acceptance, 2 certificates of appropriateness. We reviewed 247 business licenses and 59 engineering construction plans. We brought in almost $275,000, which with our budget by $805,000 is about 34%, a little over 34% cost recovery in our department. Of course, a lot of things that we do, we don't have charges for, walk-ins and telephones and a number of other grant work, things like that. So I'll be glad to answer questions if you have any, if I can.
I do. There was a lot of media coverage this past week about our development here, and I'd just like to ask a couple of questions. Councilman Javon stated that there are 13,000 new units at different stages of development. Can you tell me what stage of development they are at this time?
Well, I've been working for quite a while, and it's a moving target because there are different levels of approval, including at the zoning level, and then we have properties, and y'all have had those discussions before, that are essentially entitled simply by the zoning that they have. So we got a lot of large tracts of land that have zoning on them, and all that would be necessary is for someone to come in and record a plat and go through the plat review process, which would not require city council. We have not done an inventory of all those tracts of land, sizable tracts of land that already have zoning assigned to them, to find out what their carrying potential is. We can do that, take a lot of time to do, but we keep a running track of more recent developments. And so it's always a moving target because new homes are being constructed, or permitted and being constructed and then being occupied. So those are no longer in the hopper as proposed. So a lot of these plats that were identified in the staff report are contained in this master list that we keep, and we keep them stratified by those that are recent zoning entitlements, as well as the preliminary plat, for that matter, and final plat. So you're not going to get a new development until your final plat is recorded. That's when they are allowed to start building homes. So there's a lot of things that are zoning related, and you may have a master plan for a zoning project that will have multiple phases and come in and be platted over a number of years. So a master plan with a lot of lots may take 20 or 30 years to eventually develop out. As you've seen how Fairview and Foxland and Carrollton and Kennesaw, they just didn't happen overnight. Just because you get approved with a master plan, you still got a long way to go before that project actually
And some never
is
happen.
completed.
I mean, some evolve and change. I mean, I saw multiple iterations of Foxland over 40 years before it was actually developed. And if you've been around here for a while, you understand that. I was very dismayed that someone shared with me that it was said in media that the population of Gallatin is going to double in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that is really,
That was one of the questions I had, too.
Yeah, you may remember our comp plan that was adopted, and I mentioned tonight. It projects about 65,000, a little more than 65,000 by 2045. And so that was done by GNRC, our consultant, and they use projections that are prepared by Woods and Pool and Woods and Pool. There's also projections that are done at UT Berber office. So those are two sources, and Gallatin has gotten a bigger share of the Sumner County growth. That's not necessarily the case, because a lot of the areas in the county are starting to grow quite
the
rapidly.
forecasters are starting to adapt for available infrastructure and the like. But what's kind of funny about what I just said was I was actually reading the campaign page of a candidate in Franklin, Tennessee last night, and it was the same thing. The population of Franklin is going to double in 10 years. And I thought, and it was, somebody trying to win an election. I thought that was funny because obviously that's not either. But I want y'all to know, because I think you'll be interested in this. I was in Franklin today with the director of FHFA, the overseers of the Federal Home Loan Banks and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mae. I got to be in a roundtable with Mayor Moore and then several people in various industries who were talking about the challenges for paths to home ownership. And it was very fascinating to hear the different perspectives on why we're in the circumstance we are with needing housing. But as I've said, it did make me feel good that it was said many, many times that this all comes down to supply. And that the affordability, one person was talking about, a person that's, actually one of them had a tie to the Blessings Estates happening here in Gallatin. And he was fascinating, but someone else was talking about that, materials have gone up 20%, labor's gone up 24%, and land has gone up 1,000% in like the last decade. And he said, and that is why everybody's having to build density to accommodate these housing. And then I actually followed up with Mr. Stanton. He said something a couple weeks ago, and I thought, I must have heard that wrong. And so I called him next day, and I said, did I hear it right that you said every linear foot equals $1,000 in infrastructure? And he said, yeah, I said that, but it's probably more like 1,500 feet now. I was like, wow.
$1,500.
Yeah, $1,500 per linear foot. Because, you're talking about the labor and.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really interesting.
the best
I didn't mean to
plan.
go off on a tangent. I forgot what I even started with on that, but.
Yeah. The market definitely dictates what's going on. I just wanted to be sure that this was not something that we had all of these homes built out here and, nobody's in them.
I think Chuck, Mr. Stewart, you correct me if I'm wrong. Have I not heard you say that the most that could get built in this community in a year would be 1,000? And that was if everybody was doing everything that they could. And that's because of workforce and.
That's correct. I'm gonna give you those numbers under other business. I have the annual report.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad to hear that.
I think it's we just have to be careful when we talk in the media about numbers and, and of course our residents too are not, told information that is not accurate. And, these are true, what you have are true numbers. So I appreciate those.
So we can formally say that 85,000 is incorrect
Yeah.
by like 20-something thousand.
Well, and not feasible. And again, there was a wonderful, just a scholar and a person who's worked for Fannie Mae. I mean, brilliant man named Ed Pinto was there today. He's actually from Washington. And he said that it's all, and this is what I've said before, but I didn't say it as eloquent as he did. I didn't bring that notebook up here with me. I wanted to, because he said, you have to, trust the market to, he said it so eloquently, and I wrote it down, but it was basically let the market do what it's supposed to do to provide housing, because it changes over time. It changes with what people want. It changes with what people can afford. It let the market respond to the housing needs.
Remember, I guess we all do, back in 2008 when it just went dead.
Yeah.
I remember one house that they started building, they had it framed up, and it just sat that away for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
No roof, no shingles, no nothing on it.
Exactly.
Oh,
So I've seen it go to that extreme.
Well, a lot of you
don't want that
know,
either.
I spent some time with Edsel Charles recently, and he made a point that I thought was really interesting in that now and 2008 are different because during that time, there was not a housing shortage and it was cheaper to rent than it was to own. And that's why so many people abandoned their mortgages. Well, now we're in a time where so many people, the rent costs are so high, there is a housing shortage. And this was talked about a lot today too. People are constrained by having low interest. I mean, those of us who are in homes with a low interest rate, we're not going to give that up and move. And so that keeps people with low interest rates stagnant, and there aren't the housing units or the affordability level to be able to. Oh, and then I heard another data. I've got all this random data in my head. 25% of adults up to the age 30 live with their parents.
Say that
What
again.
would you like to contribute, Mr. Hayes?
5% of all young adults live with their parents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You, back in '08, there was challenges when the economy turned. Do you think now, if it was to happen again like it did in 2008, the city is in better position to face those challenges?
Well, the city is. I can't speak to
Well,
the investors in our area.
I'm talking about the workforce in Gallatin.
City workforce.
No, just the
In
population.
general.
Well, it's a various population.
There's more here than what used to be.
Think about the kinds of jobs are here, and they're not jobs. I mean, COVID actually was a great test for that, I'd say. I mean, most people here kept working and were employed and were things that were necessary for.
We have a lot of tech companies, and that's a benefit.
But also, too, when you look back then, remember that was before all the baby boomers started exiting the market. So you had a lot more people in the job market, and now we have a workforce shortage. So I think I heard the number that there's like 100,000 more jobs than there are people to fill them in Tennessee. I could be wrong on that data.
Countrywide.
It was 150,000 jobs and 85,000.
Okay. There's 85,000 people to fill 150,000 jobs, Mr. Fenton corrects
That's in
me.
Tennessee.
That's probably work,
Came out,
labor.
from the State Chamber of Commerce.
Were all occupations included?
I don't know that for sure.
Sorry, Mr. McCord.
Well, it's important to make sure that we have inventory both of zoning and platted lots to meet that demand. Otherwise, the price of housing is just going to continue to escalate. So we got to have a good supply.
Yeah, if I well what was said, that if we can build only, how much you say, 1,000 max a year, we have plenty of inventory for plenty of years coming. But two things on your report, sir. When I look at the number of applications for this year, that's what kind of hit me right there. Number of application, 573 application processed this year. That's barely 10 a day average. So that look a lot to me. And the other issue I have is that on your last page, you put the revenues from the application and other services compared to your expenses. So I know you told me that once, that you're thinking you are not charging enough money for the job you're doing, guys, and I agree with you because I don't think we should recoup only 30-something% of the cost of your work. So maybe we should look at that and see if we can change the fees there because I don't think we'll recoup enough money. That for sure. But to come back to the numbers are taken out of the city website. So if the city website is not accurate, maybe we should fix it. But again, we should look at the fees because we should be able to recoup more than 30-something% of your cost.
The website, well, addressed both of those things. The website is accurate. As I
you.
mentioned, some of these projects include the same development, so you might be double counting. So there's a zoning process, and there are a certain number of units that are identified with the master plan with that process, and sometimes you'll have a plat that comes in on that same property, and there may be, if there's 1,000 units on the master plan and 100 units are part of a plat that's included in that master plan, unfortunately, that could possibly be double counting those units.
Because it's going to show
So-
1,000 approved, 120 in construction of that, but it's not taking them out of what's approved. You have to, and some of them, we don't know what happened to them. They've gone off the radar.
Exactly,
somewhere.
and like you said, there is probably more because some are not there anymore, and they still got approved, so, but, you know, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I can count.
The cost recovery is a big issue. Before we raised the fees in, I think, 2017, 16 or 17, we were only recovering about 15 to 17% of cost. And then we presented a new fee structure at that time, and we have been working on collecting data to develop another fee structure. And it will also include not only the cost per hour of various personnel in our office, but there's other people that are involved in the development review process that are not in our office, that there's a cost as well. And so we are doing better than we've done, about twice as good. Last year, we did even better than that. So we had a much better cost recovery than we had this year. So we're going to be working on that. You're not going to get 100% because a lot of the things that we do are not chargeable activities, so.
All right, planning does a lot of work for citizens that are related to property issues and property lines and fences and
Enforcement, you don't get a lot of money
enforcement.
for doing
Yeah,
enforcement.
a lot of things that aren't necessarily development related.
So when can we expect to see a proposed revision on the fees? Because that was 6 years ago, it's time to do it.
Yep, we're looking at it, and we've collected the data. It's just a matter of time to be able to do it with the workload. So if you have a particular date you want us to do it, we can make that the highest priority.
Maybe next budget year would be a good date.
Okay.
Transitioning. So. And you have your plate very, very full.
Yes, we do, and, you know, our fees are not much different than most of the other cities of our size in Middle Tennessee. And that's one of the issues as well. If you charge 100% rate, you would be well out of line with what some of the other communities are charging. So, you know, engineering has a construction plan review process, and they charge fees for that too now. They never did before.
Questions for Mr. McCord? Thank you.
Thanks.
Very, very much. So that's going to conclude the regular agenda. Mr. Stewart does have something to present under other business. I do have one street closure and then just one item for discussion. Already, but it's a street closure request for the 7th of October. It's from the Sumner County Museum for the cemetery tour closing from 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. Cemetery Avenue from Smith Street to West Winchester Street. And
Is that happening earlier this year than what it has been in the
it's
past?
always the first Saturday in October.
It's a great event.
Just got here sooner.
Everybody sign off on it?
Mhm.
All right, motion approved.
Second.
Approved by Councilman Hayes, second by Vice Mayor Love. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimously approved. The other item of business I have is a kind of an interesting ask, and I was going to go ahead with my item and then let him do that, if that's okay. I'll be quick. You can stand up there. I have had some requests from some students, some period of time ago, before any of us, I think, to consider renaming our property on East Main Street, the one at the entrance to where the old high school was, H.H. Burham Park. H.H. Burham was, do you know much history on him? I don't, but I've heard wonderful
Way before
stories.
my time, but I've heard great stories from my
He was the principal
family.
of Gallatin High School for a long period of time prior to Dan Herron. And of course, everybody remembers Dan Herron, but there's apparently a generation of students that was very, very fond of Mr. Burham. Do you know any history about him?
What was his name again?
Burham, B-U-R-R-U-M.
I think I know somebody that has some stories about him.
Oh, well, I've heard lots of stories about him. I've just got to get lots of facts about him. But what I really want to know from this council is, are you amenable, are you open to that? He also lived right by that property on East Main Street. I think it'd be nice to remember, someone that's long gone, but apparently made an impression on a whole generation of really those who've done a lot in our community. Like going and getting kids out of bed to take them to school and.
Years are you talking about, Dave?
I'm talking about 50s and 60s.
And 40s even.
Oh,
Does he
40s?
still have family living in this area?
I don't know if he has family living, I don't know.
His wife was also a teacher.
Leola or Leora or something like that.
Who brought this up?
Pardon me?
Who's bringing this up?
I have heard from class of 59 and 1961. 1961's ready to donate a bench, if we'll name it for him. So I think it's, that age of Gallatin High School graduates that, and he must have been quite impactful for them to be still talking about him all these years later.
I mean, I think it'd be a good idea.
I've heard lots and lots about good things, and we keep a name of somebody that helped Gallatin in people's memory, like Vena Stewart, for example. That was that same time period. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Well,
What do you want to name that? I mean, what area is it?
the East Main Park,
That park
the entrance to where Gallatin High School was.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to talk to the school board. I want to get whatever they may have about his history. Huh?
Stadium.
Where the stadium is, Stephen Carter. They didn't just build that stadium in the middle of nowhere 100 years ago. You know that stadium is maybe 110 years old now? Isn't that crazy? Pretty neat, though.
Does anybody know what year that he retired?
I think it was like 63 or 6, whenever Heron came in. So,
We could probably Google
Some
them.
information.
well, the school boards,
I think if
the
you
school
put something
board of
in the
education.
paper, a lot of these people, his students,
Maybe
have
so.
where their information
Maybe
is,
so.
I know I've heard 2 stories from a guy that's probably 82 now, and they're pretty funny stories.
No, like I said, he just must have been very impactful for people to still be talking about him. Apparently, class of 61 had a reunion this weekend. Okay, well, I will get some more information from the school board, see if they think that's a good idea, or from the Board of Education, and then come back to y'all. Mr. Stewart, thank you for indulging me. Oh, is there any other business from this council? Mr. Javant?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to say a few words about item 8, because I'm glad I got pulled, because I thought that was just insulting, the way that got brought up. Everybody knows the Meadows. Everybody knows the story with it.
I'm sorry, would you back up? I am totally lost. I didn't understand what you said.
I'm talking about item 8. And I would say I'm glad that got pulled, because the way I took it, when I looked at the package, I thought that was insulting to that body and to the citizens of Gallatin. Because everybody knows about the Meadows, everybody knows how much the land got sold 6 months ago for $8 million.
Talking about it when it's not even on
We probably shouldn't be, especially since the people have already left. I want to go back to what I said at the beginning of the meeting. It was an exploratory discussion. I wanted to have it. I did not put it on the agenda. Mr. Fenton did. You're not binding anything by putting it on the agenda. And
I know, but again,
And
Why
and
do
to
we have?
frame it as it being insulting to
Yeah.
that's
So
not
let me- can I
that's not
finish?
right. Can we put something on the agenda?
Can I
without-
finish, please?
I don't think we
Thank
should
you,
even be
ma'am.
talking about it.
Probably shouldn't.
When someone buy a piece of land, $8 million.
Okay, we're not going to talk about the
And
item specifically.
6
If
months
you want to talk
later,
something on principle.
It's brought on our agenda for the city to buy
Okay,
it
Mr.
for
Givons.
$19.3 million.
This was a-
That's insulting.
This was a conversation, this was an ask. It was
So
not
don't put
anything that
that-
this body was going to do.
Putting
I actually
price
had
on
the
the
same.
agenda.
Mr. Juvance, they asked to have it put on the agenda. And oftentimes, I mean, I see it all the time where stuff gets put out there, look at what the city's doing now. No, the city's not doing it. Property owners are doing it. And you want to make it that we're doing something terrible, and we're not doing something terrible. The question was going to be, is this something that the city would consider? I wasn't supportive of the city buying it, but what's wrong with somebody making an ask? How does that make us bad or make us whatever? If somebody's asking the question, the right way to do it is to bring it to this body and have the conversation. The wrong way to do it is to, I guess, whatever alternative you're suggesting, which I just never ask, never consider something as an alternative.
If I remember well, before I got elected, I asked you to put something on the agenda, you refused. So,
The department head, putting it on the agenda.
again, I'm telling you how I felt. I think that was insulting, the way that was presented to that body, and you take it the way you want.
Well, I would say that, you know, probably Mr. Fenton and the property owner are insulted that you're insulted by that, because are they supposed to seek your position, your permission before they put something on the agenda for an ask?
They want my position, they know it now, for
What?
sure. They know my position now. If they wanted to know it.
Please.
Permission, huh?
My
Yeah,
position.
Permission. Well, you know, as we were talking about with Mr. McCord earlier, things change over time. There's a property owner. They wanted to see if the will of this body and the will of the homeowners might have changed, and it might be worth considering. And I thought there, you know, was fair to be able to ask. You know, I thought we lived in America where people have the opportunity to ask the question and have their thoughts considered, and I support that. Mr. Stewart.
Mayor, Council, Chuck Stewart, building official. Before I go into this report, I'd like to step back and help answer a question that was asked Bill McCord just now. Having spent many years in the construction industry. Let's take a 100-lot subdivision. It's platted, final master development plan, and we're coming there, we're gonna buy lots and build. I can guarantee you there's gonna be a percentage of those lots that are not buildable. It's not feasible to build on them because it's got too much rock, the drainage is terrible, and I don't wanna get caught up in that. So I may end up buying a lot next to it, combining the two lots, have a double lot there. So this number is hard to hit to say exactly how many platted lots are in the city of Gallatin here that can be built on. 18 months ago, I got a phone call from Brentwood, asked me, said, do you remember all those lots that you and a few other contractors left out there in the subdivision? I said, yeah. He said, why didn't you do those? He said, man, you got to blast. And residential don't want to get into blasting. When a contractor buys a lot, the last thing he needs to run into is blasting. So we passed a lot of lots in Brentwood. So when you look at these platted lots, take into consideration, some of them are not buildable. There's a few lots in Carrollton that never get built on. People bought them for next to nothing and just made a bigger yard. So to answer Bill's question, he's right. He can't give you an accurate today count on how many lots are available out there for him to deal with. I just wanted to put that out there tonight. This is the pretty one. That's got numbers on it and everything. Fees. What I look at is community development, which is building, planning, and engineering. We brought in $3.5 million in building fees this year. If you take Bill's fees, you take Nick's fees, and you take corporate and business donations that come in, we're at $4.5 million in fees. Okay? We more than covered the budgets for these departments. More than covered as community fees like that. If you're raising fees, then we're gonna run into other problems that we're gonna have out here, and we got enough already. I just want to get that on the table. You can look at these numbers. If you have any questions on any of the reports, we'll do this to my administrative assistant back here. They've been working on this for a week and a half, going back and adjusting numbers, okay? So Christina would be glad to answer you or give you any other data you need. This one right here is very important to me tonight. This is the little one that's attached on the back. This is a 5-year annual report. Now, you've heard me say this before. When I arrived in Gallatin, the first thing I did was went to see Gallatin Department of Electricity. We're coming out of a recession. I said, what was your growth rate during the recession? And Mark Campbell looked at me and said, growth rate? I go, yeah. He goes, what makes you think we had one? I said, Gallatin had to have one. He goes, 3%. So during the recession, the rest of the country in most places was really suffering. Gallatin grew at 3%. And I take this into consideration, you grew at 3% at this population down here. We're growing at about 5 today. Construction for contractors, for building departments, for everybody out here runs in 7-year swings. You go down, you start up, you start up. Eventually you're gonna spike and you're gonna start down again. And then it's gonna go down here to a point and it's gonna flatten. But if you look at those numbers I put on that page for you there, you can see we're in a flat right now. We're averaging 901.6 residential units a year. And I say units because with a report that has to go to the Census Bureau, to Dodge, to everybody, anything that's residential is an apartment unit, not a building, the unit itself. So I got 230 units in here, it's 230 units. So if you take those houses and those units together, we're running 901.6 residential units a year. I think the Census Bureau last time, James, correct me if I'm wrong, they figured 2.5 people per household? 2.4? Run that times, break those numbers down, you can see how many people they're saying you're adding to the population, okay? At 2.4. But if you take a look at what we have here, we exceed apartment units with residential houses. And residential is attached and detached, okay? They're all residential to the people we report to. And this report has to go out every Monday. So we're fortunate enough today for Christina and another gentleman in my department to be able to get the first quarter out for us. They had to go out and do some real work today to add it. So you're gonna see the first quarter of this year. Those numbers show us right on track for the identical numbers we're running. We're right on track. But construction, the way it goes, it's jobs. Industrial comes in and brings jobs. Jobs drives that housing market. You get people coming in and get a job, they gotta have a place to live. Houses come, and then the commercial comes behind it. When you get houses, then you're gonna have hair salons, nail salons, dog, pet places, restaurants, you gotta have store, you gotta have all those things.
But I think where it's changed so much, and I don't want to interrupt you, but I think it's very important to make the point. We have a lot of people who are moving to Middle Tennessee who are not participating in the workforce. And therein becomes our pressure on housing.
And when we talked to our business partners, when they had the meeting up here, and I asked James to try to put it together with our commercial partners, but our business, our industry partners out here, the worst thing could happen to Gallatin is you bring jobs in here. They come here, they work, they take their paycheck, and they go to Lebanon, Murfreesboro, Macon County, Portland, somewhere else, and spend their money and pay their taxes. We need them to stay here and spend that check here, okay? That's just common economics for us right there. But one thing I'll say about my department, and I'll pat them all on the back, I had a bunch up there that work hard to dig to make sure our numbers are correct before they go out here because of who all they go to. I think we send out 21 different people reports every Monday morning, okay? You take all these buildings also here and take 70 cents a square foot for the residential adequate facilities tax they're paying, and take 40 cents for the industrial, which is storage buildings, warehousing, all that, they're paying 40 cents a square foot. And those numbers mount up pretty quick to what they're getting feed out there before they can ever turn dirt. You're in the hole before you ever turn the first shovel, begging to get in the bank's pocket somewhere. So if there are any questions on all this, I know we'd like to all get out of here on Tuesday night, but we have anything that we can offer you, we'll be glad to email you, email us, we'll send you what you need. Look through these reports real close and see that how they break down. This is what we're required to break down to Dodge, to Census, to everybody to send out. Any questions I answer while I'm standing here?
Are your contemporaries around us, I mean, are they telling the same stories about, you know, their experiences in their communities?
Oh,
I ran into the mayor of Lebanon last week, and I said, thank you for being a lot faster growing than Gallatin last year.
they're all about that way
Like
around us.
1,500 people to our, like, I think it was like
I talked to
800.
the building official in Goodlettsville, Millersville. I talked to a bunch of them, and they're all experiencing the same difficulties Gallatin has. It's no different. You're in Middle Tennessee. You know, I don't know what we can do to stop it. I don't see it stopping it. I don't see it happening. You got jobs, you got land, you've got a good style of life here, so
A lot more jobs
where you want to
coming.
go, you know?
A lot more jobs coming.
You know, I was born and raised in Louisiana, loved it. I don't want to go back.
What?
You know? Huh?
What'd you say?
I was born and raised in Louisiana, and I loved it, but I don't want to go back. You know?
You're having your cooking, I don't want you to go back, so just stay.
Well, you know, it's a lifestyle, it's a place that is very accommodating to people. The people here are friendly. They welcome you when you come in, and it's just different.
One of the things I heard today, and it kind of ties into what you're saying, and it's something that I hadn't thought of, and this was kind of just a housing advocate person, and they were talking about seeing a lot of this conversation about hating developers and developers being greedy and developers being bad, and he said, developers build your communities where your people go and choose and live and make their friends and have their families. And so, you know, why is everybody against developers these days? I said, that's a really good question, but I thought that was interesting. And let's,
Lifestyles.
They also take one of the biggest risks out there, especially when they start developing.
The largest
Microphone.
industry, the biggest employer in Middle Tennessee, probably all of Tennessee, is construction. It starts at the guys cutting up trees, the haulers, the mills, the lumber sheds, the delivery guys, the carpenters, the electricians, the dozer drivers. When you count them all up, that is the biggest industry and most employees out there. I never intended to be in the construction industry. You know, I'll be honest with you, I didn't. My daddy wanted me to, but I didn't want to. And I ended up in it, so.
I'm glad you were, and I'm glad you wound up here.
Thank you.
All are.
A lot of knowledge, Chuck.
Sorry, but I had to get on my soapbox a little bit tonight. That just.
No, thank you, a lot.
This body needs to know that there have been significant changes. I can remember when I was first elected, Mr. Stewart and I were talking, I said, you know, I want our building department to have the attitude of being midwives versus enforcers. And I want people to understand that, you know, their power comes in helping people do what they're trying to do to execute their project, not by saying no. And that's what our department has done, but they've also made inspections with very, very short turnarounds. I get so many compliments about our building department, just how seamless it is. I mean, no department is without its challenges, but people tell me all the time about their great experiences with planning and engineering and codes. And that is a testament to all your folks on the ground for all the development departments. But that's individuals to thank for that. But you certainly set a course and taught a lot of people and kind of raised a lot of people in the industry. I remember the first few years here, Mr. Stewart was saying, you know, everybody's aging out of this. Well, he started recruiting young people and getting them trained to go into inspecting, and they've gotten good careers in the field. So thank you for.
And this one's about to age out, so keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, all right. Any other department, Mr. Tuttle?
I just wanted to draw your attention to the report that we left on your desk. This isn't an annual report or anything, just a quick update on projects. Try to do this periodically throughout the year to keep you guys in the know. We got about 30 projects listed. Definitely not going to go through each one of them, but invite you to read through and give me a call if you've got any questions or want to know any more information, or if you've got something that has already struck you and you're interested about, then I'd be glad to answer it tonight.
Is that the end of the year?
Don't forget your microphone.
Is that the end for this year?
This is just a simple update as to where we are on each of the projects at this moment in time. So we've got a lot going on. Now, this doesn't include different programs like our repaving program that we have. We're getting ready to start on some annual repaving jobs in a couple of months. I think I mentioned to you guys just a few weeks ago that Rogers Group won the bid for our annual paving contract, so we're going to get that going. That's not on this list. An update to our major thoroughfare plan is not on this list, so different studies and other little annual projects like that aren't on the list. These are the big ticket items that you see on this list. You know, we're talking about a couple $100,000 and up each one of these. So there are some
Likely
expensive things.
years
And some of these actually don't have any money of our own involved. Some are actually some TDOT projects that we're working with TDOT on, or they're working within our community, but I feel like you should know about it, like replacing bridges on Nashville Pike. There's at Station Camp Creek, and East Fork Creek. In the next year, those projects should be going out to bid and be under construction, and people are probably going to be upset about what kind of ruckus that's going to cause on Nashville Pike. But the structures have been there for over 50 years. And it's time to replace them. So it's one of those things with aging infrastructure. So TDOT is on it. I did want to mention, the mayor made a comment about the upcoming festival on the square on the 7th, and we are going to try to get out and about on the festival. We'll be down here with the fire department and try to do a little bit of outreach on the major thoroughfare plan. We think that we can take some information from what we got through the general development plan process, but we want to do some extra work there and get out, and we'll have a survey ready for people to answer, and certainly we'll be sharing that across social media as well and gain input in that way. But like to get out and talk to folks. Maybe a little bit of a mention to the mayor, a poster or a banner that says, I hate waiting in traffic, come talk to us. So we thought that may get some attention. And
I said thanks, Nick, but you're right, it will get attention. Well, actually, okay, Chief Bandy, we were talking about what existing booth they might affiliate with where people would come and talk to them, and we decided against the police department in favor of the fire department.
Yeah, we want to hang out with the fire guys.
Well, but in full disclosure, the fire department is doing an obstacles course for children, so they're going to be held captive.
So parents will be kind of standing around, just
and so
waiting, and we're going to be targeting those folks.
You have a dunking booth.
Oh, boy. If there aren't any questions, that's all I have.
Yeah. Anyone else before we say good evening?
Motion to adjourn.
By Councilwoman George, second by Councilman Carter. All in favor, say aye. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night. Y'all take care of one another.
Did y'all have to wait last night at Jonathan's?